The trenches were one of the toughest parts of war. Dirty, pest-infected, horrible stenches, and on top of that, the manual labour was more than just a walk in the park, yet alone the collateral damage.
There were two main ways to dig a trench. There was entrenchment, which was the faster method, allowing many soldiers equipped with shovels and picks to dig a large portion of the trench at once, although this left the diggers exposed to all the dangers that the trenches were supposed to protect against. So, entrenchment had to take place either in a rear area, where diggers were not as vulnerable, or at night. Normally it took 450 men and approximately 6 hours to dig 275 yards of a front-line trench, which were meant to be 7 feet deep and 6 feet wide. The other option was sapping, where a trench was extended by digging at the end face. It was a much safer route, but took more time, as only 1 or 2 men could fit in the area to dig. These trenches were dug through the beautiful countryside of France, and often through private property, particularly that of farmers. Canadian Private described his experience when digging one of the first Allied trenches. With pick and shovel we dug trenches through beautiful fields of grain, fully realizing what damage we were doing to the farmers' hopes of reaping small harvests that would enable them to stem hunger during the coming winter. The partridge with his ox-drawn plough, the matronly gleaner, and the young woman gathering grass and leaves, roots and truffles, stood arms akimbo, wordlessly, helplessly watching the depressing effect of the morale of the men, to many of whom raising grain on the western prairie also meant their livelihood could not easily be dismissed.
Because the Germans dug in first, they were able to seize the high ground. This not only gave them a tactical advantage, it also kept them much drier than the British and French, who were forced to dig in lower areas that were typically 2 to 3 feet above sea level. This led to frequent flooding and almost constant presence of water in Allied trenches. However, it wasn't all bad. To give the soldiers a break, the British and the French decided to recruit manpower from non-belligerent China to support the troops with manual labour. Their most important task was digging trenches in World War I. 140,000 Chinese labourers served on the Western Front over the course of the war. 40,000 French and 100,000 British. They were also known as the Chinese Labour Corps.
Something that really helped the British was artillery. Artillery was one of the most significant elements in World War I. The shattering bombardments that preceded infantry assaults led men to dig deeper and deeper into trench lines and bunkers, creating the static warfare that endured for most of the 4-year conflict in the West. Heavy artillery firing from behind the lines was important, but a lighter, more localized form also played a huge part. Field artillery.
Mechanically, the new tank was the same as the Mark I, but it had thicker armour and improved fuel supply, and modified sponsons with slightly shorter guns in the male version, and female tanks had even smaller sponsons, and were produced in a ratio of 2 female tanks to 1 male. Mark IV tanks went into action first time in the summer of 1917, and they fought to the end of the war the 7th and 12th Battalions of the Tank Corps. It was a male Mark IV tank which won the very tank versus tank action in April 1918 by knocking out the German A7V tank Nixie.